4 minutes past, so let's do the spiel.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the mentorship working group for the TAG contributing strategy group. This is an official CNCF meeting, and as such falls under the CNCF Code of Conduct, which when distilled means please be excellent to each other. So, and note this meeting is recorded, so this will, I don't know how it gets uploaded, but it will eventually get uploaded somewhere, somehow. So that all being said, yeah, the original meeting was sent out with my original Zoom. And then Josh said, hey, why don't you shift it to this one, which does the recording automatically. I said, okay, sure. So if you have a calendar invite that has the old Zoom, that might also indicate that it had the wrong time, because I had updated a couple of times. And Google is set up such that you can't do every 2 weeks correctly. And so there's actually 2 invites, one for every second Tuesday, and then one for every 4th Tuesday of the month. And so it's a bit of a mess, but I'm hoping that we'll figure this. I'm hoping this will sort itself out somehow.
Yeah, how are you with that at the moment? Because for me, I think fortnightly engagements, especially everything's coming together, is still, I mean, it works well for me. Did you have any thoughts on that, as opposed to monthly at the moment?
Well, it should be fortnightly right now.
Yeah,
and I'm okay with every 2 weeks.
Cool.
If we want to shift that down, I'm happy to have that discussion. But I think for now, I'm happy with it. I think that there's enough to do, and people are still getting our legs under us. So
cool.
I'm still okay with it.
Sounds good.
So. All right, so just to go through our agenda here. Thanks everyone who did updates or added things. CNCF students. I think this is referring to the. What was the URL that we had discussed? This might be referring to the meetups system that we had set up before.
Yeah, it was just a little bit. I think I mentioned from our last little catch up. Natalie sort of suggested, or tabled the idea of engaging with the CNCF, like student ambassadors and everything. It was just a little bit of an update from there in terms of what thoughts might be as far as who we might go through to best engage them, or at least get their thoughts on that. I can't remember, sorry, the name of the guy you mentioned who might be best.
Yeah, I think if it's the, can you drop the sorry, I'm just looking for the URL that you had. If it's the same thing that we were talking about, you and I, yesterday.
Yes.
Then I think we might want to reach out to Kunal Kushwara.
That's right.
If I'm saying that name correctly. I think I think that would be the person that we want to reach out to see if it's still something that is ongoing. I think they had something to do with it. I reached out, I talked to Amy Scadavara-Perrin about it probably a month ago or a little bit before then. And I think she thought that it was sort of a done program, like that we're not, and this is now secondhand, so I would have to either review those notes, but I'm not sure that it's, like, I think it's a community run program, not a CNCF run program, which is fine. But like I said, I think right now Kunal is the person to talk to about that.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to follow up with that.
And he appears to be on the CNCF Slack, so it should be fairly easy to reach out to him if we want to do that.
Cool. Yep, happy to. Yeah, that's everything on that.
That's everything on that one. Okay, yep. So moving forward on Outreachy, there was a couple of emails over the last week that took me a little bit by surprise. I was looking a couple of weeks ago at the dates, or trying to find dates, and maybe I just wasn't able to see them, or my search skills are lacking some days. But I was surprised that it seems the Outreachy program has sort of started, and they had been inviting folks to propose projects and whatnot. And Outreachy, the CNCF has had a few projects through. I think Open Telemetry has had one fairly recently, and it looks like there's maybe some interest on the Kubernetes side to do some work with Outreachy. But I'm wondering, given our capacity, if it would be, and I think Josh maybe suggested this, if it would be of value to try to recruit somebody from the community to help organize our Outreachy involvement, because I'm not sure that we've got the bandwidth currently to do so.
Oh, sorry, let's start taking notes as well.
So then that begs the question: how do we do that?
So the intake has started. What sort of things might that, as far as support assistance, what might that entail specifically?
I'm sorry, ask again.
As far as what support or assistance with outreach and engagement, things like that, to develop it, what might that involve?
Not outreach, Outreachy.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's Outreachy is a yeah. And I think what it would involve is, if we're bringing a community member in, I think what that would look like is somebody who would potentially reach out to various projects and say, hey, this is coming up. Is this something that you're interested in participating in? Or I think Outreachy is sometimes, I've heard that it may be more participant driven, in which case we want somebody to go out to the communities and say, hey, this is upcoming. Are you interested in participating? Do you have any ideas? Let's connect folks who are interested with the projects that might have capacity. And so it would be somebody who like almost an ambassador type role, where it's like saying, hey, this is coming up. This is something that's worth doing. Let's try and have somebody come in and help us with that. Hello, Josh.
Yeah.
Your time.
Hey there. Sorry, I'm late. It's been a difficult morning.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and your timing couldn't be better, actually, because we were just talking about potentially trying to recruit somebody to help with our administration of Outreach, if we do, and what that might look like.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the obvious first thing to do is to put a call out. Just put a call out on the mailing list and in the chat channel. And see if it gets a response.
Right.
If not, we could look at escalating it to the TOC list.
Which mailing list
So
would you suggest first then if
the
you're not
tag
going to?
contributor strategy mailing list.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
What I'd love to do is to implement the same thing that we have not yet implemented for Kubernetes for the same reasons, which is to start treating all of the short-term internship opportunities as sort of a thing, and try to just gather up generic opportunities from projects and then use them on the different programs as appropriate. Now, that doesn't stop needing to have another outreachy admin,
Right.
but it would make it considerably easier because it would not be that outreachy admin, that new person's solo duty to collect opportunities for outreachy projects. Because basically, for any of our projects, unless we know there's a social problem with the project, my experience is that maintainers are perfectly happy to accept interns of whatever criteria they, the main difference between the programs as far as they're concerned is timing and maybe overhead. And from that perspective, for the maintainers, outreach and LFX are both easier than GSOC.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think LFX is intentionally the counterpoint to the rigor of the GSOC.
Well, also the fact is that you don't have the infrastructure necessarily, because I was there at the beginning of GSOC, and the first year of GSOC looked a lot like LFX.
Okay, so now I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. So, no, my problem with LFX has not necessarily been where we are now. It's, in terms of infrastructure support, it's been that there's no plan to improve it.
Yeah. Well, there is. I'll push back on that. There is a plan. I don't know when it's going to be executed. Yeah. So, which is tantamount to the same thing, the same result essentially.
I'll just say that I had a meeting with the LFX team right after, back when it was still called Community Bridge.
Right. Yeah.
And we came up with a whole long set of to-dos that were supposed to be the roadmap for the future of mentorship. And that was 3 years ago, and none of that got executed. So.
Yeah. I don't know how much I can say about that, but
But in the meantime, it just means for LFX that it's heavily reliant on you personally doing a lot of things.
I agree. Yeah, and that's another thing that I would like to start recruiting people to help with.
Yeah.
But
the nice thing about outreach is you can have up to 3 admins. So it makes for a good opportunity to mentor somebody who wants to become an admin, right? Because you don't have to cancel your own admin credentials in order to recruit someone.
Right. That's very cool. Actually, I didn't realize that. I was unfortunately sick last week, so I only got bits and pieces of the conversation. Were you able to coach the Kubernetes folks through their outreachy interest last week, Josh?
Oh yeah, no. The timing was off. We're going to work on that, but we successfully recruited somebody, and she became available 5 days before the org deadline. At which point our response was, so you're going to be working on outreachy for the next cycle.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Because I'll tell you, in Kubernetes land, we've kind of used up our backlog of projects that have available mentors. So we would have been literally starting from scratch. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and this is a very new person, so I would not want to volunteer her to work on CNCF as well.
Right. That makes sense.
Thank
you. Thank you for
it
taking
would be
care
too
of
much.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that because
Yeah,
I was in
but you can
no
assume that
place
Kubernetes
to-
is going to take care of itself.
That's generally my assumption. But it was still something I was interested in see come to fruition. So I was curious how the rest of that went.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually just saw Sage yesterday, in fact.
good.
And she was totally behind the idea of please wait until you're completely ready rather than trying to do things at the last minute.
Yeah, I completely agree with that advice. Okay, so at that point, is there anything else we want to discuss about outreach before we move on to the next item here?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we really want to put out a call because it is a good opportunity for somebody who has a little bit of time to contribute, and potentially cares passionately about Outreach's mission.
Yeah. Okay, we'll make that note. So then the next thing.
Oh, actually, here's going to be one question for going forward with Outreachy. What's the CNCF funding situation for Outreachy? That is, like, I know how it's handled within Kubernetes, but I'm wondering for all the other CNCF projects, you know, because Outreachy is funded on a per internship basis usually.
Right.
So I'm wondering if we have a pool of funded internships for the CNCF as a whole.
I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question, and let me follow up.
Yeah, and also we need to know that before we put out the recruitment call, because you know, say for example, we decide that yes, we have a pool, but it's available only for incubating and up only, which would be a likely policy.
Yeah.
Then if we don't want to recruit an outreachy admin volunteer who really cares deeply about a sandbox project, and then tell them, yes, you're the admin, but you're not allowed to recruit an intern for your own project. So
right. Yeah. So the question is I think generally what is the funding situation, not just for outreachy included. And I know we are funding LFX mentorship to the point where I'm not sure we've hit the bottom of, like we haven't hit our I've never had anybody push back on us saying, okay, you've got too many projects.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where there is budget.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah,
LFX accepts direct donations as well.
It does.
So there's sort of a built-in funding mechanism.
Yeah.
Which, however, might, you know, and presumably you can sort of pool stuff donated to non-Kubernetes CNCF projects if there's kind of a mismatch between the donations and the projects that get them.
What I'm saying is,
I think that might be something to clarify as policy, because, you know, I have to say there's potential backfiring there.
The way I understand it, and I may be incorrect here, so a little caveat there. I think that the CNCF does that direct funding. Like there is opportunity for others to fund as well, but the funder in the LFX mentorship stuff that CNCF puts together, I believe the CNCF does the funding for that. Now, how exactly that works, I don't know, and I agree we should know. So let me follow up on that, in addition to the outreachy stuff, just because I want to make sure that we do have questions of budget are important to sort. So
which is, we don't want to get down the route of actually arranging, you know, a mentor and an internship, etc., and then say, "Oop, nope, sorry, we don't have money for that."
Does Outreachy pay the mentors? Because I know the LFX mentorship program does not pay mentors; they just pay mentees.
Theoretically, yes. However, historically, the majority of our mentors have worked for large companies where they're not allowed to accept the mentor
Right.
money. Sometimes that mentor money gets donated to other things for that reason.
Okay. So you're saying,
wait, LFX, are you asking LFX or Outreachy?
I'm saying on the LFX side, they are not paid.
No, on the
Mentors are
LFX
not,
side, they're not compensated.
and that's the question was about Outreachy is, are they compensated on the Outreachy side?
Yeah, and my answer there is sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, and that makes sense. Okay, and that's something that we would need to consider in budgeting as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's so hard to find mentors. If we can find a mentor where the compensation makes a difference, absolutely, we want to have it there. It's just the mentor compensation isn't very much, and as a result, it's not really necessarily a motivation for anybody who's a senior programmer, even if they're a freelancer.
Sure, yeah.
It's more of a nice thank you. It's more of a nice thank you. Have a drink on us type compensation. One other thing that I'll mention is, of all of the organizations, Outreachy probably has the most restrictions on country, simply because they have the smallest staff, the smallest financial staff. And they're not necessarily the same ones that LFX has. For example, LFX has been on again, off again about Brazil for reasons I am all too familiar with. Whereas Outreachy has been very determined to maintain a relationship with Brazil just because so many of their mentees have come from there. So it's just basically the case of there's a whole bunch of countries where it's really hard to pay anyone. And organizations pick and choose which of those countries they're going to try to overcome the barriers.
It can be hard even to pay folks in countries that we've routinely paid folks in. International payments is just hard. But that is something, again, to sort of keep in mind. All right. Is there anything else we want to talk about on Outreachy before we move on?
Josh, is that one of the reasons regarding Brazil, like the difficulty in payment stuff?
One of the reasons for what?
You mentioned something.
I was just talking about with the internship programs, each one has a different list of countries that the interns can be in. And that's because of international payments issues. Google Summer of Codes is the broadest because Google has a giant finance staff that is already paying employees all over the world. Plus, they basically bought an electronic payments startup.
I didn't hear that.
That allows them, helps them pay people all over the world. In a bunch of countries, the GSOC mentees actually basically get a cash card.
I see.
Because it's easier to FedEx them a cash card than it is to make any kind of electronic payment.
And to be
Sorry,
clear, we're not doing Outreachy this time around because we missed the deadline, not because of any geopolitical stuff.
Right. Because we need help running the program is really what it amounts to. So
I was asking just because I'm in Brazil and maybe having anything that I can help with here. So
yeah, not really. The big problem with Brazil is that Brazil imposes a 40% import duty on a lot of kinds of payments. And it shouldn't impose the import duty on payments like paying an intern, but sometimes it does anyway, and then you have to fight to get the 40% back.
Right.
Yeah, I see.
When I ran an independent software company, we had subcontractors in Brazil, and sometimes I literally flew down there with cash because that was easier than trying to pay them electronically.
Yeah, and it's like everything is so complex here at the moment, so maybe that's gonna get better. But but thanks for.
I mean, honestly, the reverse is also true. It just not
Yeah.
something that most of the organizations we deal with are
Yeah.
not trying to make payments in the opposite direction.
Just for completeness, a note on the LFX mentorship program payment system. It actually uses the same system that we use for Linux Foundation contractors. So we're able to pay any intern anywhere that we're able to pay any contractor.
Right.
So
Yeah.
It's just a note.
Yeah, I mean, just part of it is in the administrivia of organizing all these mentorship programs. We should have a page somewhere in GitHub that lists the countries that those mentorship programs currently support.
Yeah,
Just to
I think
avoid
we have
crushing
that.
disappointment.
Yeah, we have that. I believe we have that for LFX mentorship, but I agree we need to expand that for. Now, the thing about doing stuff like that though is I don't. Maybe it's the tech writer in me. I don't like duplicating information.
Right. If the organization is a page we can point to, then we just do that.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
So
let's make a note to do that at some point.
Yeah. It's just that sometimes, depending on the season and current international banking issues, those we can't currently intern anybody in this country have included very big countries with a lot of potential programmers, including Brazil and India. It's better to screen people up front than have them get through the whole, starting the whole application process, and then say, "Hey, we really like your resume, but we can't actually recruit you."
Yeah, that's a crushing blow. I completely agree. Okay, let's just for time move on. I think there are some things we need to do with outreach. We've got some to-dos and we've got some call-outs to make. So we can decide who's going to do that. We can have folks volunteer in the doc here. But Jay and I were discussing yesterday. I'm going to be doing a talk for Google Summer, not talk. Talk's a bad term. Google Summer of Code is doing not a celebration of the last semester, but they've invited all of the orgs to do a 2 to 3 minute blurb on their org, what our wins were, and so on and so forth. And I was able to, with Jay's help, get the slides in, so we should share those just so that everyone has got, let me drop those in the copy link. So about slide 68 in that deck is going to be the CNCF blurb. Again, it's just going to be a quick 2 to 3 minute chat. And while we were while Jay and I were going over, we wanted to discuss what our responsibility to the community was, and we didn't have, like, we in our charter we discussed what our responsibilities were to the CNCF and the CNCF's responsibility to the working group, but I don't think that we hit on what our responsibilities are to the community at all. I thought that it would be a worthwhile discussion to have, given some folks are going to ask about it potentially. Is there something worth worrying about? Yes, no? If so, then shall we?
Yeah, I guess that's something good to have, and not only for like external stakeholders, but maybe ourselves as well, to guide us on a clear maybe direction of where we want to.
Like a mission statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was I think it sort of popped up as Nate and I were also just reviewing, I mean, some of the points that were suggested to cover in the presentation, obviously, and looking at some of the other ones that other organizations have sort of put forward or touched on in different sort of capacities as well, and thought, while we're sort of we've already made some headway on some actions and stuff in this space, but yeah, and it's part of the bigger sort of vision and mission, everything in terms of what the group represents and what we want to achieve, and ideally not repeat history with other steps that might have been envisioned and perhaps not progressed. Might be good something to really to get some ideas about that, and just sort of wondering, thought probably wasn't something for us to try and discuss and figure out ourselves, and open up for everyone else to feed in if there was any initial thoughts around that.
Okay.
All good.
So I
Yeah,
think
I was just trying to look at where your charter actually was now
Oh, I had that up
and
like
realizing
20
that
minutes ago.
I'm looking at
Oh, I've got it.
I'm looking at a branch based on
Yes. Computer strategy.
The Google one in the hack. I think that was the last version of it.
This is the one.
This one?
This is the published one.
Oh yeah, nice.
I've shared it in the doc. Chat. Yeah, that's the one. And again, we've laid out a bit of a mission statement, but I'm not sure that it really. I mean, I thought it was pithy when I first wrote it up, but I'm not sure that it's necessarily saying.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah,
the only thing that strikes me as sort of missing here, which honestly is something that we do, which is to provide support and advice for the projects in mental.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And you're right, it is something that we do. So good to, it would be good to
Yeah, I mean, that would actually
explicitly
almost
state
under the
that.
mission would be a second sentence, something like, support growth and sustainability of projects by assisting and supporting them in mentoring new and existing contributors. Because that is part of the mission, even though we're not saying it, right? Is that,
Yeah,
hey, part of this is about projects effectively need to be recruiting contributors all the time.
yes,
And they also
absolutely.
need to be promoting contributors or they die. So
Yeah. Yes, very much that. Without getting, I so want to talk about the other thing, but I don't want to get derailed. So continuing on the mentorship stuff. So I think what we should do is open a PR with that new sentence, and tag you, Josh, Catherine, and Dawn to approve the new terminology, or is something at that level something that
we'd need to bounce it to the liaisons for final approval.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Which I mean they would just +1 it. But
yeah, that's what I would expect. This is
but
this is not
since
a big,
we have them, we need to make use of them.
Yep. Yes, indeed.
So
yeah.
Are we first
Okay.
making the PR and then pass it around for comment, or first make the
Yes.
comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
I
easiest
can
way
make,
to do it. Otherwise,
I can make the PR.
Okay.
oh, thank you. All right, so I think that's that then. I didn't add this next. The next item on the agenda is strategic overview. So I'm going to let whoever added that speak to it.
Yeah, it wasn't anything to spend too much time on at the moment. I guess it was just, and obviously you and I touched on it briefly yesterday from the previous meeting as well, probably more of an update thing. But just to sort of gauge if anyone who had reviewed it over the past fortnight had anything they wanted to sort of feedback or contribute or suggest about possible changes before we have an opportunity to sort of dive in a bit deeper. So
That's the set of images that you had shared with me, correct?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I said that I was going to take a look at it yesterday, and I just ran out of day. So I will take another look at that and make some comment. As a quick overview, we should probably that's the updates and I just want to so I've just added that link to the agenda if anybody wants to take a look. And I think it should be open for anybody to make comments. So if you've not had a chance yet to take a look at it, there's some interesting stuff in there, and it's worth looking at. So thank you for reminding us. And what is the goal for that? Do we want to add that to the homepage of the repo, or is this the type of would this be something that would be broken up into like it looked like there were timelines and such? And every time I see something like this, I'm reminded more and more that we should probably start looking into building a website. But is that what is the end goal for the strategic overview?
Yeah, well, I guess
So.
Oh, sorry, Josh. Yep.
No, go ahead. First strategic overview, then website.
Yeah, well, obviously it was just a bit of a high level thing in terms of us collating some of the things that have been identified and said in previous engagements about some focus areas, and obviously considering how that will align with some of the bigger strategic focus with like the tag contributor group and things as well. So we're not sort of getting out of track with that. But I guess part of the objective was to feel, as we're going along identifying areas for improvement, we're coming up with issues, and obviously we're talking yesterday about even looking at all the process and things that you've had to do with LFX and a lot of the back and forth. And Leanne's done some great stuff in terms of starting to track student pathways and outcomes and things like that, starting to sort of identify where the sort of focus areas that we should be looking at, and what are some potential actions that we sort of can start moving on to making sure that we're addressing some of those things as we go. So I'm working on that at the moment as well, in terms of, like I said, I've just tried to collate a lot of what people have sort of suggested over time from different engagements. I guess for the group to sort of review, are these things still relevant and accurate? And then from there we can start sort of, deconstructing and go, yeah, we can action this. What's that low-hanging fruit that we can move on quickly and start making changes to, and what's other things that's probably perhaps going to be, chipped away at over time. So that's
this is actually sounding like something that should be addressed either through tagged issues,
okay,
or via a project board, rather than a document, if you follow me.
Okay. Or so what was the second one? Sorry, I'm just taking some notes.
Or a project board.
Okay.
It's just a UI difference there.
I think that your style of exploration is through design, Jay, and that's great. But I think I would agree with Josh in that if we're highlighting in that document things that need to be updated, then creating issues in probably the mentoring repo is probably the best place to add specific things. And I can help you set up a board for that that we can just drop issues. And anybody should be able to open an issue, but I believe that there are some restrictions on who can access board updates and shifts and whatnot. So I'll make sure that you're able to do that if that's the way we if after you see it you agree that that's the way to move forward.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds all good. Thank you.
Hey Jay, is the latest version or the latest iteration you had for that presentation that had the graphs and whatnot, is that still the draft mentoring overview slides on the Google Slides?
It should be the same one. Yep, should be the. Let's double check now.
This one
Yeah, and the link that Nate's copied back over.
Okay, that looks like the right one. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, yeah, and
Yeah.
and that's what we want to transfer to issues and whatnot to track that.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good.
All right.
Cool.
Before Alexandra, it sounded like you're interested in doing that conversion. I would hold off just a moment. Let's set the board up and make sure that folks have access before we do that conversion. But I do, if I'm right, I do appreciate your enthusiasm.
Yeah, thanks.
Actually, I wanted to just do one other thing before we go into the presentation, working the presentation.
Sure.
Since Alexandra is here. The Contributor Opportunities Board.
Yes.
I wanted to actually stress that that is not a project with a deadline. I realize we've had one of our liaisons treating this as something that we need to have next month. But it is not actually the case that we have promised it to anybody. And given that we had a quick and dirty attempt at a contributor jobs board for Kubernetes, which was a total failure. I would rather see folks take their time, spend some time talking to maintainers on non-Kubernetes projects, etc., and figure out the best way to do this, even if it takes several months to get started on it. Because doing something quickly that then fails does not actually help us at all.
Yeah, +1. I hadn't realized that we had started. I thought we were still firmly in the discussion phase.
Well, we were. We just had one of our liaisons has gotten very enthusiastic about the idea and has been pushing about, so when are we going to have this? And I wanted to be clear that
thank you.
That doesn't need to be treated any differently from any other contributor saying that.
I appreciate you doing that pushback.
Yeah, I agree. We got to do some more research. I hadn't have the time yet. I'll probably
well, it's fine. We have the contributor survey out, right?
Yeah,
and that's going to give us data related to this, among other things. So
yeah, but the idea is that that we take it, at least the first iterations, we take it slowly so we can actually understand what we're doing and who are we actually targeting and whatnot. And that's going to be starting slow and actually doing some iterations over time. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, well,
thanks for
the thing we found out via Kubernetes is one of your biggest obstacle is getting maintainers and other project leaders to post things and keep them up to date. So, and this is what we found with the other mentorship programs as well. So I kind of feel like that kind of needs to be attacked as problem number one is, how do you make it easy for the maintainers to post and update things so that they actually do it?
Yeah, and that was part of the reason I was pushing back, is because building something new immediately implies maintenance. And we
Yeah.
don't know who would necessarily do that or for the long term and hand off and all the rest of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, just to continue forward, I had mentioned website and you seemed to perk up at that point.
Yeah,
Josh, is
so
that
I
correct?
feel pretty strongly that the mentorship website should be part of contribute.cncf.io.
Oh, even better.
I mean, specifically, it's appropriate for it to be under I want to contribute, with a link back to I'm a maintainer, for the
Right.
maintainer side of things.
And that's what, and actually that's something I could maybe ask all of you to help a little bit with. And that is the CNCF/mentoring/discussions board. I try to keep on top of it, but I will occasionally miss messages. And especially with messages, one of the most common messages to come in is, how do I get started? And I have a bit of a canned response to that. But if I'm just always providing my canned response, it's not necessarily ideal. But I do think that the contributor getting started pages is one of my go-to links for that. But just generally, if you find yourself with a few minutes here or there, I really would like to use the discussions board as a hub for discussion, as opposed to the mentoring Slack channel in the CNCF Slack. So I'd appreciate that help if you have time or the inclination to do so. But you're absolutely right, Josh. I like the idea of putting mentorship stuff under the contributor.cncf.io because it already exists. Again, speaking, why make something new if something already works there? And if we have a getting started page that we could like hook things off of, I think that would be a great place to start making a discussion about mentorship and just sort of building that out.
Yeah. Also, I'm trying to avoid creating any new web infrastructure.
Thank you.
Right? If we can just put this under the existing content directories in tag contributor strategy, then we make life easy for everybody.
We just
and
got
honestly, what's under, contribute to projects right now is pretty pro forma.
Yeah.
So
we just gotta think about how and if we start actually conflicting with that website, because I don't know, I don't actually understand. Would that be within the contributor, like the contributor button there, or what? Because if we start adding more stuff to that website, I don't know, but maybe people that are focused on contributing or wanting to contribute or resources related to maintaining a project, mentoring is it is somewhat related, but not directly.
Right, we have some of both, so we would be interlinking a little bit, right? Because in the case of most of the stuff would be addressed at mentees, right? And so all the stuff addressed as mentees would go under /contributors. As would an eventual opportunities board if it ends up being a web form thing. Would go under there, right? Because it's a question of which audience are we addressing. And then the one thing that would go under maintainer is information on how a project can participate in these things.
All right, but then, okay, so then a contributor on that front would be mentoring, would be considered a contribution or some type of contributor, and then the maintainer side of the website would be related to the project wide. Is that correct?
Would be my project wants an outreach intern. That's what that would be. That side would be for.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up is because I'm so sorry. I apologize if that hurt anyone's ears. And the reason I bring it up is because in the discussion board, a very, very common comment is, as a contributor, how do I get started contributing? And how do I find a project that I'm interested in, given that I've got this skill set? And I've got a pro forma response to that, but I think that it's something that we could include in the website just as a like outside of mentorship. A mentorship program is a good place to start if that's what you're interested in, but there are other paths to starting contribution. And it seems like each project is a little bit different, but I think that there's probably commonalities across the whole thing to how do you start as a person who's interested in the process.
Yeah, we just gotta be careful on how things may end up in another working group, for example, or another part of the.
Well, I think a maintainer is just another type of contributor. Like I think I agree. Like, I mean, our site has to have, as an audience, a couple of constituents in mind. We have our maintainer group. We have our contributors. We have folks who want to be contributors. We have mentees. We have people who want to be mentors. So that's 5 sort of off the top. But to start, I think contributors and folks who are I'll call early contributors, folks who are just looking to start out or who have just started in the last few months, and sort of project maintainers, I think, are 2 good target audiences for the contributors website. And I think it's already for the most part targeted to those 2 constituents. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Josh. I was saying the 2 main audiences for the site are currently contributors, folks who are already contributors or who are just starting out, and maintainers, who are a type of contributor but have different needs. And so I agree, Alexander, that we need to consider those in any updates to that site. But if we start adding mentorship stuff, I think it'll be in its own category. It'll be contributor.cncf.io/mentoring, and then we would probably build out our own our own information architecture under that to ensure that it is separate from more general contributor activations, if that's the right term.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I feel that that's the way to go. Because if you think about it this way, if you want to contribute, being a mentee is one way to contribute. You follow me?
Yeah,
one way to get started contributing.
Yes.
And the and then from a perspective of projects having mentorship programs, that's a project organization issue. So the only one that doesn't divide out between, our sort of contributor versus maintainer persona is the mentors who are not maintainers.
I didn't think
that's the one audience that we can't really target with that split.
Well, I didn't think we had. I thought, well, for LFX. Well, yeah, okay. So I was going to say, I thought that we had to. So projects, at least on the LFX side, have to have a maintainer as a mentor. So if there's only one mentor on a project, they have to be a maintainer. However, if there are multiple mentors on a project, only one of them needs to be a maintainer.
Yeah, and which means that the reality is
yeah.
for a bunch of these projects, the maintainer mentor actually isn't doing anything. The actual active mentorship is being supplied by
Right.
somebody else. We just need a maintainer on there, essentially to verify that this project is officially part of
Precisely.
the open source
Yeah.
project, lest we have a mentee spend 7 weeks working on something that's going to get rejected.
Right. Yeah.
The
It'd be awful. Yes.
and that hasn't happened to me within the CNCF, but I certainly have seen that happen with Google Summer of Code when sufficient due diligence was not exercised. Yes, in the early years again.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So my suggestion was to actually fit it within the existing contributor/mentor split that we have there. That is, under a contributor maintainer split that is under, if you go to maintainers, we've got right there GitHub community governance, and we would add mentorship, right? And the same on contributors, where we currently have CNCF projects, and then we would add mentorships.
But is it contributor or contributors CNCF.io? Sorry. Is it contributor or
Contribute.cncf.io.
Contribute. Yeah. So that's where I think we gotta think before merging everything within the maintainers or the contributors page. Maybe we have to think about if we are not like trying to merge things that are related in some sense but are not the same, just because like the focus for actually attracting mentors and mentees and people that are they're kind of different. So maybe someone wants to contribute and wants to learn how to contribute and not, but doesn't actually want to be like mentored by anyone. So
my
just having
advice there. My suggestion there is I think we need to research what we have in the CNCF mentoring repo, build out like a diagram that is the existing information architecture there, figure out what we want for an information architecture for mentoring and mentorship, and then look at the existing contribute.cncf.io information architecture and see where we can merge the two, whether or not it's a piece that'll hang off, or if it's something that needs to be more tightly integrated until we have an understanding of what we have in both places. It's going to be hard to say exactly how they're going to get merged in together. But now that I'm hearing from you, Josh, that contribute.cncf.io is potentially a home for that, I think that work should commence. I think we should start looking into the information architectures of both systems and then figure out how they can be pulled together in an almost as is, because again, this is a Hugo site now, and so moving the information from the repo onto the site should actually be fairly straightforward. But again, I want to do it slowly and with research underpinning what we want. So we're over time.
Yeah, and so I actually need to run, but I can be back on later.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So do we want to take a hiatus for, let's say, an hour then, Josh? Would that be
that would
good
work
for
for me? Will work for Jay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jay?
Do that.
Ria?
Yep.
Okay. And Alexander, just
and then we'll get back together and work on the presentation.
That's what we're thinking. So you're welcome to join again, Alexander, if you'd like, but this is sort of the end of the meeting. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you back in an hour.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care.